Hey now Brawlers, my name is Nick, this is Board Game Brawl, and today we're going to take a look at a game called Goblin's Breakfast. This is from the publisher Midnight Campaign, and it is going to be seeking funding on Kickstarter from September 25th to October 25th. And when the campaign launches, I'm going to have links at the bottom of this video and then down in the comments section, but you can also go to Kickstarter and search for the game as well, Goblin's Breakfast. Now, what is this game about? It is a competitive game for 2 to 6 players where you take control of goblins who are trying to eat breakfast, of course, because breakfast is the most important meal of the day, but as a goblin, it is not always easy to get in all of your meals, especially breakfast, because everyone is rushing down to the old slop bucket where the mama goblin is dropping all the food, and you need to get in there and fight for the food that you need to survive through the day. And you want the choicest bits, of course, and all this, of course, is representing points. You're trying to get the most points by the end of the game by elbowing out all the other goblins who are trying to take away your breakfast. So let's go ahead and do a brief overview of a preview edition of the game. So do note that some of the cards are subject to change. Then we're going to come back and I'll tell you my final thoughts. Okay, I'm going to give you a very brief overview of Goblin's Breakfast. Now, one thing I want to stress here is that this is a preview copy of the game, which means that the final version may have some slight differences with the rules, the artwork, text on the cards, and there may even be some extra cards added during the Kickstarter campaign, which should be running from September 25th to October 25th. And if you are interested in the campaign, when it launches, I'm going to have links at the bottom of the screen and then down in the comments section. But do keep this in mind that as we go through this overview, that this is just a preview of the game. Now, the theme of Goblin's Breakfast is that you're a bunch of rowdy goblins who run down to the mess hall in the morning in your cave, and you're trying to get breakfast. But for goblins, that's easier said than done. The matron is dumping out a whole bunch of different types of food and eating utensils, and you have to elbow out the other goblins in order to get your meal. You have to fight them off, you might have to steal their food, whatever you need to do to get the most important meal of the day. Now, mechanically speaking, you're trying to get the most points. Food cards are worth points, and when you eat food, you're going to get points, and then when the main deck of cards runs out, someone tries to grab a card and there are none there, then you're going to add up your points. Whoever has the most points is the winner. Now, let me take you through a basic turn in Goblin's Breakfast. Well, first off, you're going to set up the game. The setup of the game is shuffling the main deck of cards and then putting face up in the center of the table a number of cards equal to the number of players plus 1. So this overview is going to assume a 4-player game. Now, each player also gets a very handy cheat sheet card here, which will take you to through the basic turn options that you have. Now, all the cards that are in this deck are going to represent a few things. Weapons, which are the sort of bluish cards here. Food, which have a red background. And special action cards. Now, on your turn, you have one action that you can take, but you have 4 different options. One is that you can grab food and weapons. When you grab food or weapons, you're going to put them into one of your hands. In this game, you're assumed to have 2 hands, just like a goblin would. And each card is going to have either a one-hand symbol, indicating that it can be held in one hand, or it's going to have a 2-hand symbol indicating that you need to use both of your hands to hold it. When you take a card or cards into your hand, you're going to put them face up in front of you so that the other players can see them and indicate that you actually have stuff in your hand. But if you try to grab a 2-handed card when you already have 2 cards in hand, you're going to have to discard one of them or the one that you just tried to grab. Put it into the discard pile, and whenever you grab a new card from the lineup, you're going to replace, when you've made your final decision, you're going to replace it with a card from the deck. So there will always be 5 cards to choose from when someone is trying to grab a card. Now, the other thing you can do is steal a card from another player. If you want to take their stuff, you need to just have a weapon and try to attack them. If you don't have any weapons, you're assumed to just have a strength of 0. But if you have more strength than of the other players, by having weapons with their value up in the top corner, then you're going to have the opportunity to steal from them. If you have a higher value, you'll just take one of their items. And some of the weapons have special abilities when you try to steal. The third option that you have on your turn is eating. If you have food, you can choose to eat it. You're simply going to take it, you're going to put it face down into a separate scoring pile, and that's going to count as points at the end of the game. The point value will be up in the top corner of the card. And the last thing that you can do is take a special action card and do whatever that card says. Special action cards have a purple border, and they're always just a one-time effect that will take place when you grab the card. And that's really how the turn structure is going to go. You're going to be taking cards, using them, eating them, stealing if you have to, and so on until the deck runs out. Then you're going to count up points. Now let's look at the cards that come in the game. The first ones, of course, are the food cards. So some of them are somewhat basic in that they don't have any special abilities, but they'll just give you points at the end of the game, like the chicken leg here, the beef steak, and the side of beef, which is worth the most points, but it's also two-handed, which means it's harder to hold on to. You can't really defend yourself because you're not going to be able to hold a weapon at the same time. Some of the food has special powers, however. The grab berries is only worth 1 point, but after you take the card from the lineup, you get to take an extra turn. You also have the bad eggs, only worth 2 points, but instead of eating the bad eggs, you can discard them from your hand to choose a player, and that player has to discard all their cards that they have in hand, so it can be a nasty effect against the other players. Then there are weapons. Some of the weapons are normal. You have the butter knife, which is a value of 3. You have the frying pan, which has an attack value of 4, and these are just one-handed. Then you have some with special powers, like the spoon. After taking a food card with a value of 1 or 2, you get to take an extra turn. So if you take grab berries or bad eggs, while you have the spoon, you can immediately take another turn. The spork also has that ability, but it's a little more powerful as far as combat than the spoon. And then you have the really big stick. It has the highest combat value, but it requires that you have 2 hands. And after you attack another character, that player discards all their cards that are not taken by the attacker. So you'll take a card, and then their other card, it gets discarded if they have another one. Now then there's the special action cards. You have extra helpings, which lets you take 2 extra turns immediately when you take it. Very powerful. You have look over there. You get to steal a card from another player's hand, even if they have a bigger weapon. You have feeding frenzy. All players eat any food in their hands. The current player may take another turn. You have Tattletale. Discard all weapons and special cards in play. So if you're falling behind, you can do that and kind of nail the other players. And finally, you have Gut Punch. Choose a player. That player discards the top card from their score pile, which can be a really mean card and can set someone back. And that's the game. You're going to be taking one of your actions on your turn to either grab food or weapons or special action cards from the lineup, eat the food that you already have, steal food from another player, and generally just try to have the most filling breakfast down at the Goblin's Mess Hall. Now, let's get to my final thoughts. Well, I think I can't have a conversation about Goblin's Breakfast without starting with the theme, which is goblins having breakfast, but having to beat up all of their rivals and get breakfast in, the most brutal way possible. And I say brutal, but the truth is the theme of the game and the artwork in the game is very light and colorful. And even though it is about goblins beating each other up and trying to steal food from each other, I think that the theme is light enough and family friendly enough that you're going to be able to play this with people of all ages. And but because of that theme, because it is fantasy and you've got these goblins, every gamer can appreciate every gamer who's into fantasy can appreciate goblins. So I think that this could actually be the kind of game that I see people playing as sort of a filler just to warm up before they start playing a heavier fantasy game that involves goblins like Descent. I could see them getting into the story there as well and making it work. And like I said, the artwork is very colorful and bright, and the graphic design is very clear, so it all works together well with that theme. Mechanically speaking, even though this is a light card game and it is very simple to teach and it's very fast to get up and running, it's still got some interesting concepts that make it a little bit deeper than your typical filler card game. You have the concept of the 2 hands, which I actually have never seen in any other card game, where every game has a hand limit or a number of cards that you may be able to have in hand at any given time, but actually integrating that together with the theme and having your 2 hands and having to keep them face up in front of you in your certain slots, and sometimes you have to dump something in order to hold something two-handed. That's a very interesting concept that I haven't really seen at play in other games. Then, as you actually go through the game, even though it is fast and easy to pick up on what you're doing, you have decisions to be had. Decisions to make, excuse me. You can either go for cards that are in the center of the table and try to just load up on food, perhaps, or just load up on stuff to defend yourself, but if you load up on food, someone might just attack you and steal it, which means you've wasted turns. If you load up on things to defend yourself or just beat up the other players, you might be wasting valuable time and not scoring cards, so there's a balance to be had there. Do you even just, at a certain point, you just ignore the cards in the center, the food in the center, and just try to take it from your opponents, which sets them back and puts you forward, potentially, because there's other combos that can be had. People can get extra turns through using cards like the Spork and grabbing food of a certain value and trying to get extra turns that way, or the grab berries, or just using some of the action cards that come out in the lineup that will, you know, set the other players back perhaps significantly or thrust you forward. So even though it's fast and even though it's simple to learn, there's definitely some depth there as you watch the center stack trickle out, and you have to plan your actions and hope that you can score enough points in time, making it something of a race game as well because it's so fast. So some interesting concepts at work here, and like I said, I think that it's very family friendly. I think that it will work very well with people that are into the fantasy theme, and that gives it sort of a broad appeal that you don't see a lot of games have. I think a lot of people can get into this theme because it's so colorful and just sort of fun idea of goblins just, you know, beating each other up, trying to get the most food and the best food possible. It's just a very neat theme. And if you want to support this game, if you're interested in it, if you want to know more, they're going to be running a Kickstarter campaign from September 25th to October 25th. When the campaign launches, I'm going to have a link at the bottom of the screen and then down in the comment section. Do go and check them out to learn more information. And if you like the theme, if you like what you saw in the overview, if you like the ideas of the card game and the cool concepts that it has, consider backing the project. That's Goblin's Breakfast from Midnight Campaign. My name is Nick, this has been Board Game Brawl, and I'm reminding you to get out there and game every day and in every way. Take care.